This is a big video today, guys. This is a big video, maybe one of the realest manifestation coaching videos I've made in a while. So please stick around for this whole thing because we're going to get deep into a lot of interesting parts of the manifestation culture and community, how it's evolving, and also how manifestation culture is affecting you and this sense of perfectionism, the shadow that's fueling this perfectionism and this need for results. And as you can see, appropriately so, I'm perfectly imperfect for our perfectionism video. I was brushing my teeth and I got toothpaste on myself. And I wasn't patient enough to wait for this to dry before filming. So we're perfectly imperfect doing this video today. Let's get into it. As always, before I start talking about the topic, I'm going to introduce myself. My name is Genevieve. I am a manifestation coach, and on this channel, I try to go more in depth on all of the things that affect us as manifestors. And as I said in the beginning of this video, today we're going to get really real, extra real, because yeah, there's obviously some things we need to talk about. So if you want to work with me more, there's lots of ways you can do that. There's links below for courses I have available. You can do a one-on-one call with me if you want to talk about and get advice and perspective on your specific circumstances and what's going on specifically with you. There's also a membership portion of this channel where I have exclusive content. So just check all that out if you care to. If you don't care to, also cool. So I'm making this video based on two things I noticed in my last video. And the last video I published just before this one was the video about impatience, how to stop being impatient when you're manifesting. I was surprised that that video got a lot of comments about people criticizing manifestation coaches, more so than any of my other videos. And I just thought that was interesting. On the topic of impatience, that is what drew out from people their resentment towards the manifestation culture, manifestation coaches. And I definitely got more than a couple comments kind of projecting on oh, manifestation coaches, they're always telling us what to do and this, and they never tell us the answers, and this stuff doesn't even work. It was all of the shadowy frustration, which is totally understandable. I've absolutely been there too. Some of you even know part of the reason I became a manifestation coach is because I was that person when I first discovered manifesting. I would be watching other content on YouTube, other coaches just saying, oh, it's so easy, you just do this and this. And I would be looking at them like, I must be crazy, this isn't working. I was feeling worse. I was feeling like these people are either lying or they're just making stuff up or whatever. But then through my own journey of a lot of trial and error, a lot of doing it wrong, a lot of my own perfectionism, a lot of honestly suffering, it was I was beaten into realizing how manifestation is supposed to work. And that's why I was inspired to want to become a coach, because I went through my own walking through the fire of this so that I could come on and share. And so it's so funny now be on the other side of it, where I'm a coach. I'm no longer the anonymous person on YouTube watching a coach being like, they don't even care about us and they're just saying stuff. They're always telling us we're wrong. I'm now on the other side of it, feeling like the coach, struggling with my own perfectionism, being criticized by strangers on the internet who are projecting their own frustration with they obviously, and again, it's understandable. If you haven't been successful in manifesting and you're desperately searching for answers and you feel like you haven't got it yet, things haven't clicked for you yet, and you're seeing all these coaches online telling you this and that, and a lot of it is different information, it's conflicting information, there's so much information, you are obviously going to get frustrated and resentful and project at the coaches well, they must be wrong. They must be the ones who are wrong. And honestly, some of us are. Myself included. Sometimes I have been wrong in the way that I have talked about manifestation. Why? Because I am a human, just like you. And what's so cool about this manifestation process is there is a lot of grace in the process, and we aren't meant to just be black and white, okay, now you don't get it, now you do. We have a natural growth curve. And the longer I coach, the more experience I get with different clients. I learn things differently. I learn how to be more helpful, which is why maybe some of the things I've said in my earlier videos or slides on Instagram, I might say something a little bit different than the way I was saying it back then. And other coaches on the internet, I can't speak for them, but some of them also have their own limitations that they're either projecting or they don't even know what they're talking about. I'm not really sure because I don't really watch that many other people talk about manifestation anymore. But I do know that the community is growing and therefore more and more coaches are coming online, which is great. If you want to be a coach, come online, do it. But the important thing I want you to take away is that you have to realize that coaches are not God. And part of you projecting your own perfectionism onto a coach is showing how much you're still deferring to the outside for answers, that you're still not trusting your own inner truth, your inner intuition about like what's really right for you, what is the right information for you, what is not. You're getting so frustrated because you're still looking to everyone else to give you the answers, and when they don't give you the answer you like, or when you're getting conflicting information, you're trying to take it all seriously, you're gonna get even more frustrated and your own perfectionism is going to get triggered. So realize that everyone on the internet is human. A lot of people, I'm assuming, are new at coaching themselves, and manifestation is not a one-size-fits-all approach for many people. There are different people who learn that they manifest in certain ways, and if their way doesn't match you, trust your intuition that your way of manifesting is just different. It's just different. It doesn't need to be that that coach is wrong or that person on Reddit is wrong. It just means that you and them have a different approach, and you don't need to try to be exactly what everyone else says is their success or exactly what every coach tells you to do. So anyway, I know that seems like I started off on a little bit of a tangent, but it seemed so interesting to me that the last video I posted, the reason I wanted to make this video is because someone asked the great question of how do you overcome perfectionism, being really hard on yourself as you're manifesting? How do you overcome those things? And so it was so ironic to me that that question came up on the same video that all of these other comments were coming up that were expressions of perfectionism, anger about perfectionism, and projecting it onto me, this person you don't even know, but who talks about manifestation publicly on the internet, that frustration of like, I'm not getting the thing I want, it must be your fault and the community's fault. And I'm gonna validate you a little bit and say, in some ways you are right, because there is a lot of shadow in the manifestation community. There is a veneer of perfectionism that is also what is triggering your perfectionism. Like the people who make a lot of content that make this way too oversimplified and kind of deny your emotions and are kind of spiritually bypassing, emotionally bypassing, and say things like, oh, it's so easy, you just affirm like this for 3 days and then boom, it's like everything's changed all at once. For so many people, that is not their experience, that it's just so simple and then it just happens and then they get frustrated and then they seek more information, but that conflicts with this. And anyway, it's all to say, your frustrations are valid. And a lot of people on the internet who are talking about manifestation, they're not showing their own faults, myself included. I get that on this channel, I don't publicly talk a lot about my success stories or my failure stories because there's parts of me that's really afraid to talk about that stuff, and I have high expectations of myself. I want to be a good teacher for you, and I feel like I won't be a good teacher for you if I'm talking about the manifestations that I'm still in process with. So it's not that I want to be playing into this veneer of perfectionism that a lot of other coaches have, where it's easy to look at them and be like, oh, well, they must have just got it all figured out. Like everything's so easy for them to manifest. There must be something wrong with me. That is not the case. It's that I guarantee every single manifestation coach you have seen on the internet, everyone on the internet who's talking about manifestation, there are still big manifestations in their lives that they're still working on that they haven't manifested yet. I guarantee it. I know it for a fact because I know personally other coaches, and they keep it a secret. They keep it a secret that there's certain things in their life that they haven't manifested yet. And the same with me. There's one in particular big manifestation that is still in process for me. I know exactly why, but I have chosen not to talk about it yet because it's still in process. And I don't want to distract you from the truth of how this does work, because the next thing I want to say is that technically you can mess up your manifestation because this is a scientific process. So a big thing that was being talked about in the last video I made on impatience in the comments was this thing about people being resentful about some coaches saying you're doing it wrong when you're doing XYZ. Well, I'm sorry to tell you, but newsflash, technically you can do manifestation wrong. How do I know this? Because there's lots of people that don't get their manifestation, and especially when I'm coaching them personally, I can see what they're doing, what they're going through. It's very obvious to me why the manifestation hasn't worked yet. And it's not that we're telling you you're doing it wrong to shame you. I know that it feels that way too. That's how a lot of you are taking it, where you hear a coach say, oh, you're doing it wrong, and then you're like, oh, they're shaming me. But really, you have to remember this is a science, and we're saying that to help you to simply adjust. But here's the thing, a lot of you have also heard me say in these videos on this channel that I never want you to tell yourself that you're doing it wrong. So I can see how to you that would feel conflicting if in some videos you hear me saying, hey, if you're doing this, you're doing it wrong. But then in other videos I'm saying, never tell yourself you're doing it wrong. This is one of the very interesting twists of manifestation that your ego does not understand. There are so many ironies and paradoxes in manifestation that go beyond the black and white control that your ego wants to have about this. But here is why I tell you to never tell yourself that you're doing it wrong, but at the same time know that you can do it wrong. But the reason why I tell you to never tell yourself that you're doing it wrong is because that is just a part of the process, in that the old you, the old version of you that was a very harsh critic to yourself, that was a very harsh parent to yourself, you were being that perfectionistic, critical parent that would tell you fearfully, like, oh, you're not going to get what you want, or you're doing it wrong, or no one's ever going to accept you. The reason I tell you to not be that voice anymore, to not take that voice seriously anymore, and to never tell yourself in that critical, fearful way, oh, you're doing it wrong and you're messing it up, is because part of the process is you are learning in your self-concept to be much gentler to yourself, to reparent yourself in a different way. You are learning how to, instead, if you're quote unquote doing something wrong, simply see it more as like oh, I wonder if I could adjust around this. Like, instead of telling yourself, oh, I'm doing this wrong, oh my God, I'm so afraid I'm gonna mess this up, oh my God, blah, blah, blah. Instead, to be curious about this, because again, this is a science. This is why I'm constantly telling you guys to be objective about the manifestation process, to be scientific about the process, because there is a literal scientific process to this. But if you're overly emotionally shaming to yourself, you can't be objective, you can't be scientific. And so this is why I tell you, don't go back into the critical parent voice that says you're doing it wrong and you're never gonna get this and you're messing this up. Because if you're in that critical state dominantly, then that state doesn't manifest well. Obviously that state is just gonna get more and more of whatever it is, which is just critical and fearful and controlling. Instead, you have to stop speaking from that voice and instead acknowledge, yeah, I could do manifestation wrong because it's a science. There's a process to it where certain outcomes come if you do it this way. There's other outcomes that come if you do it this way. But I am not, in my self-concept, going to talk to myself like the critical parent that's like, oh, you're doing it wrong. Instead, I'm simply going to ask, like I just said before, okay, is there something that I could adjust my process around? If manifestation is a science, how could I adjust my process around it? Is there something in this science experiment that I'm not seeing clearly or that I haven't fully uncovered yet? Can I uncover more? Can I adjust more? Can I just shift myself more? That is the mindset I want you to have. I don't want you to be telling yourself, oh, I'm not doing it wrong, and then thinking that everything you're doing is correct, because that's also not the right approach. So I so hope this makes sense, because I get there's a lot of nuance to what I'm saying. Because a lot of people, they tell themselves, oh, I'm not doing it wrong. Like they're trying to apply my advice. Like I'm doing everything perfectly. I'm not doing anything wrong. but there are still things that they're doing that they don't even know they're doing most of the time that they do need to adjust. And this is also why coaching with the right coach, someone who has integrity, someone who actually knows what the fuck they're talking about, coaching with the right coach who can really adjust to you, who can see you clearly, see your blind spots clearly, and help you to be like, okay, maybe don't do this so much, focus over here and do this. Coaching can be incredibly helpful for that. It's not that everyone needs coaching. It's definitely not freaking required. But for some people, when you don't even know what you're doing wrong, it can be helpful to have someone healthy to mirror back to you, here's what you could be doing in your scientific process of being a good manifester. This is what you could shift around. It's not that we're trying to shame you and say, oh, you're doing it wrong. It's that there are maybe some things, if you haven't seen results in months and months or years and years, yeah, there probably is something that you need to adjust, because that, if it's taking years and years or even months and months, there probably is something, I just guarantee it. Something within you that's either still not being addressed within you, you still haven't fully sunken into in terms of shifting yet. There's just something going on there, because technically when you really do shift states, when you really do genuinely shift your dynamic to something, someone, whatever it is you're manifesting, when you genuinely shift your dynamic to that person, place, or thing, I've seen it in my life 100 times. It changes very quickly, because when you genuinely change, reality changes too. And of course the 3D does have a lag, it is behind you, and that's why sometimes maybe you won't see the change physically for a couple days or maybe even a few weeks. But typically, if you've genuinely changed into that new state and you're not having purges so much anymore, or the purges that have happened, you've responded to them super differently. Once you've really neutralized purges and you've kind of grounded yourself so genuinely in the new state, results typically do happen in the 3D quite quickly. But again, another paradox, irony of that is that you can't be looking for results. I know there's so many things that the ego hates. The ego hates that it's not allowed to look for results, but it must accept that it's already done. It also obviously doesn't like what I was saying before, that you can't tell yourself you're doing it wrong, but at the same time, you must be open to adjusting in case you are doing it wrong. So this is the thing where and this is again why I wanted to become a coach, because this is a lot of navigating to balance out like your spirit and your mindset around this. And it's not always as simple as just affirm this simple thing, for 3 days and then boom, it happens. For some things and for some people, it's that simple. If you have no resistance to stuff, if like your self-concept is already on point and you've got no resistance, it really can be that easy that you just affirm a few times and then boom, in a couple of days it happens. But with things that are like the deeper things that you're trying to process and change, you can't be a dick to yourself about it, but you also have to be open to realizing maybe there are some things I need to do differently that I'm not seeing, and I need some help, some coaching, or someone to like see me and be able to mirror back to me, okay, here's what actually needs to happen as a part of your scientific process, not in that shaming way of like, you're doing it wrong. When you are a perfectionist, that is a symptom, that's a coping mechanism that you develop probably at a young age to deal with how insecure you feel. When you feel like I am not enough, I am not okay as I am, I need to be better, I need to learn more, I need to be more perfect, I need to get better at this because I shamefully feel like just who I am as I am is not enough. You obviously now, through talking these last 20 minutes or so, you can see how if you're applying that perfectionistic mindset of like, I'm not enough, I have to be better at manifesting, I'm not gonna get my manifestations if I don't do this right, you can see how that doesn't yield good results. So again, I just hope it's landing deeper and deeper, that you can't be applying that kind of mindset and think that you're going to get the result you want, even if you're doing everything correctly, even if you're doing like, oh, I do all these techniques, I do all the meditations, I do the affirmations, and yet still nothing changes. It's because your genuine self-concept, your genuine state, the you behind the techniques, I'm sure you guys have heard me talk about this before, it's not the techniques themselves that manifest, it's who are you being as the being who's doing techniques. Are you being someone who already has the self-concept that you could have whatever you wanted, that there's no such thing as a hard manifestation or a small one, that all of manifestation is, again, just a science, and you're simply learning and navigating how to do that science in your own way, and you're not so much basing your life on external feedback. That was also the whole point of the impatience video that was the video right before this one. I should probably just link that here so that you can see it in case you missed it, because it is a good video. But the whole point of that video was for you to realize that if you're still doing manifestation from this overly emotional, this emotionally dependent, externally based, like I need external validation, I'm emotionally dependent on external validation, and so the me behind my manifestation practice is still the me that's dependent on external feedback. If that's still dominantly the self-concept you have, that's still dominantly the you behind all of your techniques, behind all your affirmations, then yeah, you're probably not going to see great results, or you'll see very hot and cold results in the 3D. So yeah, you can do manifestation wrong. If you're doing it the way I just said, yeah, you're technically doing it wrong. But me telling you that you're doing it wrong by doing it that way, I'm not trying to feed into the shaming critical parent that tells you, oh yeah, you're doing it wrong. And the reason you take the feedback that way, like you can only hear things at the level of consciousness that you're at, which is why I know that people who are very reactive to coaches, like to me, like the people in my comments who are reactive to me, you know, being like, she's not telling us all the answers and this blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't even know what they say stuff like that. They are that reactive to me because they are at a level of consciousness that still is in a lot of desperation, shame, frustration. Again, totally valid states to be in. As humans, we can all go there, and it's not even that big a deal. I've been there, and that's actually how part of how you get out of negative states is you don't make that state such a big deal. But when you operate from that state like it's your identity and you're defending it and you're like, yeah, I'm right, and fuck all these manifestation coaches, I'm right. You're like overly defensive and identifying with the limiting belief that like sprang this coping mechanism of being so frustrated. When you're overly identifying with that, yeah, it's going to be really hard to shift. But when you're seeing it as the operant power, and what that means is you're seeing you are none of these states. You are not the wish fulfilled, and you're also not the state of not having. You are everything and nothing all at once. And because you are everything, you can choose. You can be like, okay, I don't want to be overly identifying with this like critical, desperate, perfectionistic thing that I learned, this identity that I learned because I grew up thinking I'm not enough. I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not going to identify with that anymore. Instead, I'm going to come over here and just kind of practice in a light, curious way. That's what I always like to tell people. Be light and curious about this. Don't be trying to manifest from desperation. Instead, be trying to manifest from curiosity of like, well, could I just for the next like minute, just accept that actually it's this way. Actually, I do have this. Actually, getting money is easy. Actually, getting into an awesome relationship is easy. Could I just like practice relating to that right now? Because that's truly what we mean by practicing manifestation appropriately, is you're healthfully relating for your own sake. This is the thing that I'm okay. This is true about me. I can get on board with this. I'm not trying to make it true because I'm desperate for external validation. That doesn't work. I'm just for my own sake, for my own love of myself, I am accepting that this desire I have for money, for beauty, for love and relationships and success, I'm just relating to myself like, yeah, that could be easy for me. And for the next 5 minutes, 10 minutes, I'm going to practice accepting that, yep, that's true for me right now. Even though I've got no proof in the 3D, don't care about the 3D anyway, because that comes later, I'm just accepting that it's true for me right now. If you're being hard on yourself about your manifestations, you're still relating to yourself as if you are not enough, that you need to be better to get something. You're still relating to yourself from that shaming, emotional place, and you need to get neutral to that. You need to simply say to that old part of you that's like shaming yourself, you need to say, okay, I hear you, I see you, I get it. I've related to that for a long time, I get it. But I'm just gonna gently put that in the back seat because you can't instantly shut it up. It's not gonna go away instantly. So you're just gonna kind of move it to the side a little bit, like get a little distance from that part of you that's like super frustrated and perfectionistic and super fearful and dependent on external things. You're just gonna put that to the side and then be like, okay, can I just, as the operant power who observes everything and can choose whatever the frick I want, can I just move my attention over to here for a little bit? And I know as a scientist, I know that the more I practice keeping my focus more seriously on this thing that I enjoy, it makes me feel good, than keeping my attention on this, oh my God, nothing works for me, I suck. I know that this is going to become stronger naturally, and this is going to slowly start to fade in the background naturally. That is the science, that what you keep your focus on grows, and you start to change your reality because you're taking new ideas so seriously that they replace the old ideas. And when you really take on these new ideas so seriously that they genuinely change you, that is when, again, like I said before, reality does change quickly. When you're genuinely accepting that this new idea is like, yep, this is true. I can get on board with accepting that this could be a thing about me. This is a thing about me. When you really start getting an easy acceptance towards that thing, that is when all of reality starts, reflecting differently to you, because you've got a whole new vibe. You've got a whole new energy that you're pushing out. And it's not coming from, oh my God, I need to do this right because I'm so desperate to get this person or this thing or whatever, so I need to do manifestation right. That's why when you're in that state, nothing really changes, because you're not really changing. You're still the old you, just trying to use manifestation to get something that you're still desperate for. You're not moving out of that desperation. Whew. Anyway, okay, this was a long video, and I know I touched on like a lot of different things, but I know it was all really important and relevant to talk to, especially what I was saying at the beginning about the culture of manifestation right now, because I get that the online culture of manifestation can accidentally be feeding into your perfectionism. When you're only seeing people talk about success, when you're only seeing coaches talk about, the right way to do it, and you feel shamed by it because that level of consciousness is where you're at, and you just take that feedback as like, oh, I'm so bad because I'm used to being told I'm bad or whatever. It is an unfortunate shadow effect of the current state of the manifestation culture that people aren't talking very publicly about the things they're still in process around, or the things that they failed at. They're especially coaches, because coaches want to be seen as perfect. We want to be seen as like, yep, we got it all figured out. Although I will claim for myself, I really don't want to be seen, especially not anymore, as someone who's got it all figured out. I think when I first started to publish online manifestation content, and I was doing it anonymously, because honestly, I was afraid. So I started my Instagram account, I think it was 2 years ago now, maybe over 2 years ago now. And I didn't want to even show my face. I just wanted to be anonymous and share what I knew, because I was still afraid of being seen. And I knew that if I, put my face to this, people are going to call me to task and want to know all of my mistakes and how to manifest perfectly, and expect me to be able to tell them perfectly how to manifest. And I was afraid of messing that up. So I was definitely in the illusion of perfectionism myself as a coach back in the beginning. Now, especially by the way I'm talking about this today, I am, as I grow as a coach, becoming much more open to not wanting to be seen as perfect, because I know it's not only hurting me to keep playing into the perfectionism thing, it's really hurting you too. Because if I'm still playing into the paradigm of like, yeah, we're just going to pretend we all got it figured out, you are going to continue to feel like, yeah, you're the one who sucks, that hasn't had it figured out, that you are, just in that frustration and shame, all that. I don't want to keep participating in that. This is a process. It's a very deep process for a lot of people. This stuff goes all the way back to our original conditionings in the way we came into this life with trauma, the things we experienced as kids, the really big things that were a big deal that we got conditioned in. This is not small stuff, especially when it comes to relationships. These are big things, and to superficialize it and to make it seem like, oh, got it all figured out, it's so simple. That perfectionism in the culture of the manifestation community right now, it's not good for anybody, obviously. So anyway, I hope that made sense. There's a lot of rambling in this video, but as I grow as a coach, I want to humanize manifestation even more. Because yes, you can have whatever the fuck you want. I know that for a fact. There is nothing on this planet that you are being barred from, that God is saying, well, that person, I don't want them to have money. Well, that person, I don't want them to love that person that they think they love. God is not somewhere else like telling you that. You can truly have whatever the fuck you want. But it is a process, again, a deep spiritual transformation process to really get into the state where you can receive it, because you've blocked those things from coming to you, because you learned to protect yourself from those things. There's a part of you that learned that you can't have that stuff because it's not safe to have that stuff. And the more we can humanize manifestation and humanize the imperfections of the trial and error process of manifestation, it's totally normal that you do something wrong for a while and then you realize, well, that didn't work. I've got to adjust the technique here and do something else. Again, like a scientist, that's like normal, that you try something, oh, that didn't really work, let's try something else. That's how like the trial and error of science works. And so never shame yourself. Be objective about this. And if something isn't working, yeah, there probably is something that you're not seeing about yourself that does need to be adjusted. But that doesn't mean you should shamefully tell yourself you're doing it wrong. It just means there's something you're not seeing yet. And as a scientist, you just need to figure out what that is so that you can adjust your process around it. But we are all human. We are all figuring this out. And there's, again, a lot of grace in this process. You don't have to do it perfectly. I've also talked about how I've gotten really big manifestations that I totally was not even feeling perfect about. I was definitely in less resistance about these things. And as I lessened my resistance about them, they started to come in faster. But there have been times in my own life where I've been shocked of like, wow, I wasn't even like perfect about manifesting that. And yet it still turned out like so in my favor. It still really worked out so perfectly for me, even though my own mindset about it wasn't even 100% yet. So that's what I mean. If there's a lot of grace in this process, but that doesn't mean that there are things that you do need to maybe look at differently or adjust, especially again, if you have been doing this for months and months or years and years and you haven't seen results, or you've seen very kind of crappy hot cold results. Again, there probably is something, a part of your process you need to look at, but that doesn't mean you should ever speak to yourself in that critical way that says you're doing it wrong. You are always going to tell yourself you're doing it right. You're just adjusting. And every time you adjust, you're telling yourself, I'm doing it right even more. Look at how well I'm adjusting. I'm so good at this. I adjust so well. When I need to adjust, I do it well. You are reparenting yourself in such a healthy way. That's so important. It's the foundation of your self-concept that you are always being so kind to yourself. You're never, ever making this about the external thing. You're never making it about like, how do I change myself to be perfect enough for them or for that thing? Again, that approach does not work. At least in my experience, lofty experience, it does not work. What works is to become so genuine in your relationship to yourself that you really put yourself first, in terms of you feeling good, you speaking to yourself in that healthy, loving way, you loving yourself through everything so that your self-concept genuinely goes up. And then it becomes naturally easier to accept, okay, yeah, I'm so used to talking to myself in such loving, kind ways where I can make everything kind of easy and learnable that, yeah, I could accept that this thing's working out for me or that this person and I have a great relationship. It just becomes easier because it's no longer about, well, how do I make them love me and I need them to be obsessed with me and I miss them so much. It's like you're getting out of all of that. And instead it becomes about, okay, I just treat myself so well. I love myself so well that it becomes much easier to just accept that this is working out for me. So anyway, this has become the longest ass video ever. We talked about a lot of things, but it needed to be talked about, all of these points. Let me know your thoughts and comments below. What are your thoughts on the manifestation culture? I know there's a wide range of coaches. There's a wide range of styles of coaches and ways people talk about manifestation. It can be extremely confusing if you're trying to listen to everyone who calls themselves a coach. And you're just primed to get resentful pretty quickly because we do have different opinions. We're all humans. All the coaches are humans, and we do have different experiences. We have different limiting beliefs ourselves. We have different just opinions and experiences that inform the way we talk about manifestation. And you need to think more critically when you're watching other coaches in terms of actually asking yourself, okay, does this person really resonate with me? Does it feel like what they're saying? Does it feel true? Because you still have an intuition. Trust your intuition of the people who are speaking, and you know, okay, what they're saying is fucking right on. I can feel it in my body that what they're saying, it feels liberating, it feels empowering, it feels good. That's when you know that you found someone that you can work with. But if you're hearing someone and it's actually just making you feel like that old version of you that wasn't enough and you're not doing it right, or you feel like you just don't get what the heck they're even talking about, then that person's not for you. Even me, if you're watching me and you can't follow me, then don't follow me. Like, don't try to like watch all my videos and then comment on every one because you can't understand me. Like, I get that I speak quickly and that I am not the kind of coach for everyone. Like, I'm just not, and I don't want to be. Like, that's just not how it's going to be. I am meant for a certain subset of people, and if you are that person who is led to me and you get me and you like the way we talk about this here, then amazing. You have manifested me well. But if you don't like this, then no harm, no foul. There's other people out there who might be a perfect match for the way that you need to manifest, and you should go over there. So anyway, again, I keep making this longer and longer. So let's wrap this up here. But let me know how this all landed on you and what questions you have. And I will see you guys soon for another video. All right, bye.